Welcome back, Guardians. Today there is 13 days left until the Edge of Fate launches, and for that, we are doing our second best weapon list. This is going to be our top 14 special weapons. Legendaries, Expert Plus difficulty. We're doing 2 of each weapon type, and this is going to be a bit of a preference for boss damage, major damage, champion damage over ad clear. However, there is plenty of scenarios in endgame, grandmasters, raid encounters where you're going to want strong ad clear over boss damage. So just a slight preference for that, but you'll see there are plenty of things at the top of this list that are better at ad clear than they are boss damage. Now, kicking us off at number 14 on the list, the very bottom, we have our first trace rifle, which is the Cranios from Guardian Games. If you didn't get this, you're not going to be able to get it for another year, give or take. I think it's summer of next year. So if you have one lying around, look for a triple tap detonator beam, maybe jolting feedback if you prefer to have the arc synergy. Detonator beam, though, is a bit more of a damage perk, giving you upfront damage against majors and things that you want to do big bursts of damage to. I think it's about a 30% damage buff as people have tested. So pretty good to pick up and use for ad clear and for major clear. Not great for boss damage, but triple tap does stretch that ammo a little bit more. Classy Contender's a good origin trait, not amazing though. Gives you some class ability on kill, could be worse. Now, number 13, we have Unsworn, the Strand Trace from Sunder Doctrine. Again, trace rifles, they're great for double special loadouts, but they've kind of been supplanted by rocket sidearms. But they still serve that purpose well. They have shoot to loot on this Unsworn. Detonator Beam, I think, is a great perk for trace rifles exclusively. You're not going to find anything else. And it seems like the best damage perk for it. Bait and switch is not the kind of thing you want to be using on a trace. Hatchling, maybe if you're on strand, but for general purpose, shoot to loot detonator beam, great combo. You can take rewind rounds if you really want to build into DPS with this thing. Maybe you're running Cenotaph on a warlock. But then again, I still prefer shoot to loot in that third column. Now, you do have subjugation here, which will give you explosions on hit, as well as being able to weaken strong targets. So that is great from that dungeon. It is probably still the best origin trait. It does bring us up above the arc one easily. But if you're not a trace lover, I understand. But this is where our traces are at the bottom of the list, unfortunately. For number 14, we've got Forthcoming Deviants, our first glaive. This one is from the Salvation's Edge raid. This glaive is a void rapid fire, so it has a bit less shield duration than I'm used to. I really like adaptives with the longer shield duration, taking something like auxiliary reserves to get you some more duration here, as you can see, about 15 stat points there. Now, while I don't like the rapid fires for their shield, and they have actually less total damage than the slower fire rate, these do feel pretty good. This has great perks. Replenishing Aegis, I think it's the go-to glaive perk, giving you ammo in the mag whenever you block damage. If you're using a glaive and you're not using block, are you really using a glaive? Why not take something else at that point? Now, you could go for chain reaction or destabilizing rounds on this. Both of those give you pretty good ad clear, can get you group kills, multi-kills. You can transfer it between them, weaken up softer targets. Generally, though, I prefer to use glaives on majors, and I'll do the melee on red bars. So I kind of prefer to take Chaos Reshaped, just because you'll get that 20% damage boost and some healing at the higher end, which should still work while you're blocking. So that's my preference on this. The origin trait on these doesn't really matter much for PvE, but this is my number 12 on the list. Now, at number 11, we have another raid weapon from Salvation's Edge. This one's going to be Critical Anomaly. I have the Adept version up here, but if you have the regular one, don't worry about that. Not too bad. I'm timing out at work right now, so I'm trying to look like I'm active again, but it's not letting me in. You're looking for a chill clip on this thing pretty much all the time. Take Chaos Reshaped just to have a damage buff in there. Chaos Reshaped is 20% up to 35%. You're whipping this out for majors and champions, so it's going to be pretty much charged whenever you whip it out. If you want to, you can take triple tap in the right column to stretch your chill clip ammo, or you can take rewind in the left column to give you a bit of a better damage phase cycle with this thing. But really, if you're taking Critical Anomaly, I think you take it for chill clip. It's going to be Overload in next season for the freeze and the slow, it sounds like. I don't think it's going to be slow. I I don't think slow is going to lose its champion effectiveness. I think it's just going to be slow and shatter both do overload. Either way, it comes with some anti-champion built in. You can get radiant or whatever else to get anti-barrier. So take it. It will do well. And it's, a little bit worse at ad clear or general content than something like Tinashe's. However, it is great for doing champion major and some backup boss damage. Just above that, we have Techian Force. Now, Techian Force, unfortunately, is not a rapid fire fusion. Rapid fires are generally the best frame. They have really good damage and the best DPS. However, we don't really have an amazing energy fusion rifle right now for boss damage. Techian is pretty much best, if not second best, for that slot. Zealots gets controlled burst as well, but Zealots doesn't really have an ammo perk, and I really like having ammo perks if I'm going to dump a special weapon for boss damage or into champions. So I prefer Techian just because I can take rewind rounds. If you prefer Reconstruction, you can always take that, or even Envious Assassin. But personally, Rewind Controlled Burst is just enough to get this into this list as the second best fusion in the game. And I think it's better than Zealot's Reward is without one of these perks in there. Now, just above Techian, we've got Rake Angle, our second glaive. Glaives aren't going to be too high on this list. They're not an exceptional special weapon for most content. Most people aren't going to be using glaives. Personally, I'm a very big glaive enjoyer. I think the shield gives you a lot of things to play around, lets you survive a lot more than you normally would in late game content. The DPS for your melees is great, especially if you're able to build into it with Synthos or something of the like. And the range damage is not bad. It's not the best. It's probably close to a fusion DPS with no perks, even if you have perks on a glaive, but it is a little bit clunkier to use. They have sped up the handling as well as the switching from shooting to melee, which makes these feel a lot better. But once again, this is another chill clip weapon, and being a glaive, it gets the 2-shot to freeze, which is pretty great for crowd control, and it does give you some extra damage on a lot of targets, especially if you hit a group and you freeze a couple of enemies all at once. This gives you really good AoE ad clear, even on chunkier targets that aren't dying to 2 hits. Once again, Replenishing Aegis is my pick here. Take Overflow if you want. Rhyme Stealer works on the melee, but I don't really like Rhyme Stealer on a glaive. I would prefer to take Replenishing or Overflow. Maybe Lead from Gold if you're running like a double special loadout, or you just want to have a little bit of better economy there. Also, Surrounded is here if you want to lean into shooting more. Surrounded, obviously a 47% buff. Great pick here. Now in the number 8 slot, we have Perfect Paradox. Perfect Paradox has been my favorite shotgun since Season of Dawn. That was the first time I got to use it. I did not play Curse of Osiris when it came out. I didn't get it back then. But Season of Dawn, this thing was crazy. And it still is really, really good. The Origin trait is a big part of that, giving you ammo on melee hit, kind of like Grave Robber without the need for getting a kill or having a powered melee. So you can continually proc things like Trench Barrel, or if you're doing 1-2 punch, you can keep loading it in while you're going in for the damage boost there. Now, you take probably Field Prep here because you get more ammo, and since you're loading it with melees, you don't really have to worry about the reload speed. But if you are going for reload speed, or you just what you get, Dual Loader, good pick here. With your enhanced version, you get 3 shells per reload, so it does take your reload down to 1/3 of the normal time, which isn't bad. Now, you do have to play Episode Echoes to get this, and that is going to be going away, so keep an eye on that and probably reach out and try and get this before it goes away. Now, above that at number 7, I have Mountaintop. I think Mountaintop is where we start breaking into like consistently good boss damage weapon / elite champion killer weapon. This can do both at the same time. My preferred role is Overflow. When it's enhanced, you get 3 in the mag per special or heavy brick that you pick up. And then I would say Vorpal is probably the best pick here. I have Recombination, which is good. I like my Recombination Overflow role. It's great for champions, letting you dump out basically 4 rockets in the time it takes you to normally shoot 3 on this. But Vorpal will be more consistent, especially if you're doing a damage phase, maybe an Anarchy setup where you're using Impulse in Vorpal. You'll get a much better damage buff over 10 rounds with Vorpal than you would Recombination. Now, Frenzy is also a decent pick here. Auto-loading if you want to be swapping around. And Origin trait, Indomitability. As we said, this is a great one. 5% to one of your abilities based on your super, which is never a bad thing to have tacked on for free. Now, just above that, we have our best fusion rifle in the game, hands down, Scatter Signal. Strand Fusion from Season of the Wish, so you have to go back and play the Wishkeeper mission if you want to get drops of this right now. If you have it as a red border, go ahead and craft it. Overflow Controlled Burst is pretty much the only roll you need on this thing. The Origin trait kind of does something if your shields break. You get a little bit faster charge time, but I wouldn't count it for anything in your calculations. You're just doing Overflow Controlled Burst here. That's all it needs to do. It'll destroy champions. It will destroy majors. It's great as backup damage for boss. We used it in some of the raids, and it works great. Now, our first rocket sidearm. Now, as a note, rocket sidearms are not my top slot. That's only because there are some truly great special weapons out right now that can do a lot of boss damage and a lot of major damage. Rocket sidearms had a large nerf to their boss damage. So in a lot of scenarios where I'm running and I want something that can do backup boss damage, Expert Nightfalls, raids, dungeons, especially on contests, we need something to do backup damage with when you run out of ammo or if you're doing a rotation. Rocket sidearms aren't my first pick, but they're great as like a second option if you're running two specials. They're great for that. Or if you're in an encounter where there's just a lot of ads and you're not really worried about doing boss damage, you're doing majors, maybe champions, even most GMs, if you're running a really good heavy weapon, rocket sidearms are like a really great default pick. Great ammo economy, really chews up most enemies. So our second best one I have is Aberrant Action. One reason for that: Heal Clip. Heal Clip is disgusting on a weapon that one-shots almost every ad in the game. Gives you 120 health per kill. And that'll get you through most content. Attrition, most GMs or master content, you're not taking much more than that in a single burst. This will keep you going, keep you alive. Now, on this one, I take Incandescent. The new solar one might have some better damage perks going on, because really you're looking at, Golden Tricorn, maybe Swash on this thing as alternative options, but I would just take Incandescent over any of those, even if you're not on solar. Now, as a kind of backup option, you do have the Origin trait here, which basically gives you Hatchling. And when I say that, I mean if you get 3 kills or you kill an orange bar, you get a Radiolaria pool, which is like a small Wither Horde pool that will do some extra damage on top. So this can tack on some extra damage, some extra ad clear, kind of for free, and it's not bad. It's probably one of the better Origin traits that we have in the game, period. Now, after that, and then breaking into number 4 is Tenacious. Obviously, are the rocket sidearm. These are neck and neck. Rocket sidearms are kind of all neck and neck. They would all kind of fall right here on the list if they were all going to be included. So it's kind of why I limited it to 2 per archetype. Now, Tenacious is going to get nerfed by the Chill Clip interaction being changed so that freeze doesn't stop unstops anymore. It's just going to be overload. That said, you're still going to have the ability to do multiple champion types depending on what subclass you're on, what the artifact is, and having Chill Clip at all is already a really powerful thing. That gives you pretty good single target damage, gives you some bonuses to AoE clear at the same time. Kind of like if you had Jolting Feedback on one of these, they'd be kind of neck and neck. But I really prefer Chill Clip on this. Works great with a Stasis subclass. Things like Hunter getting more shards for their Frost armor, Warlocks having some easier freeze chances to get some shards, as well as Titans with the same thing. So it builds in really great with that. Gives you more options to get things like Whisper of Shards or Whisper of Torment going. And you can take, if you want, One for All as a damage perk. I generally wouldn't, because at that point, maybe you just take the Call instead for this slot. You are looking at Air Trigger as your best perk right now, and maybe Impulse or Loose Change as your reload perks. But you can get Lead from Gold in the Call along with, One for All. So if you're just using it for damage, probably lean more to the Call. But Chill Clip, I think, is still going to be an amazing perk going into Edge of Fate. Third place goes to Velocity Baton. And there is one reason that this is not the number 1 weapon in the game. And that is because you cannot stack them. 2 people using this doesn't do damage at the same time. 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 6 people, you all can't do damage at the same time. In a boss rotation, that pretty much kills everybody's special DPS, right? If you're using it for kind of a bait and switch rotation to get 2 procs out of it, not going to work in a team. If you are shooting a champion together and you both shoot at the champion, one of you is not doing damage. Now, that said, this is still the best orb printer gun in the game. Attrition orbs is your go-to. This thing will make orbs like nobody's business, and orbs are power in this game. Healing, extra damage, extra ammo, whatever you need, orbs will make it for you. So with that, you take Attrition orbs, probably Demolitionist as your best pick here. And as a backup, you can take repulsor destabilizing rounds. This is a good void synergy, but destabilizing rounds with the volatile rounds buff gives you anti-barrier, which is a nice little compromise for some champion boosts in there. Maybe making up for Tanasha's getting nerfed. You can kind of go onto that as a little side piece, but really, attrition orbs demolitionist is going to be what you want to be running 90% of the time. So number 2 on this list is going to be Praetus. Now, from Vault of Glass, Praetus is the second best special weapon in the game. It has some of the best rolls a sniper can get. Now, it's not supremacy. It doesn't have fourth times and rewind rounds to kind of shoot forever, but you do have elemental honing, which on kinetics goes up to 40% bonus damage, which is a lot of bonus damage, as well as is a pretty free 1 to 2x for 10 to 20x damage. Now, you can throw kinetic tremors in the left column. You can pair that damage boost with kinetic tremors, giving you consistent champion and mini boss damage. If you're doing a regular rotation where you really want to be dumping your heavy, something like kinetic tremors proccing in 2 hits and elemental honing give you that 30 to 40% buff. Makes this a really strong contender for those rotations, as well as if you're running something like Anarchy, Dragon's Breath, or some other passive kind of heavy where you want to do special weapon DPS or as a backup option, taking fourth times or rewind rounds with bait and switch, great option as well. If you're able to make the elemental honing last a full 20 seconds to get that without your heavy, obviously you can choose that instead. But bait and switch is kind of the easier one to make sure you always have procced as long as you're planning around having to dump this. That said, the time loss magazine origin trait, once again, amazing. Gives you double the mag size while you finish up your super. You get 20 seconds of double mag size. And that's 14 rounds. Using something like fourth times, you pretty much have to shoot off 20 rounds before you have to reload, as long as you're hitting your crits. It does require a little bit of finesse, maybe a div to ensure you're getting all of these procs. If you're not hitting your crits, maybe take a velocity baton instead. But even if you are hitting your crits and you're dumping your ammo and you're getting your elemental honing procs, you are probably still not going to beat the number 1 weapon, which is going to be Unvoiced. If you have been paying attention, you should not be surprised by Unvoiced being at the top of this list. Unvoiced is from Asunder Doctrine. It is a void slug shotgun, and it gets redirection in the left column and bait and switch or elemental honing in the right column. On their own, elemental honing, bait and switch, we all know what they do, 30 to 35% damage buff. Nothing crazy, nothing to go wild over, but redirection being in the left column, the newly buffed version, that can give you up to 15 shots of double damage, which is almost the entire reserves of this thing, being normally 17. And you can pair that with bait and switch or with elemental honing, you can put out ridiculous damage every hit. About 270% damage. You have to account for doing double damage and then double the bait and switch bonus, right? So an extra 160% damage. That is a lot of damage to be dumping in a special. And you can be, firing off 1-2 shots of this, going back to a rocket, doing a rotation with bait and switch for your heavy. Or you can be using something like Anarchy to give you some more total damage over time, and then just mag dump this, maybe even have a second special if you're going to be, wiping through all of this if it's a long enough phase. But you're going to get some ridiculous numbers out of this. And even if you're not using it for boss damage, using a honing one with redirection, or if you're willing to jump through the hoops to do bait and switch, or just using a vorpal on majors and elites, mini bosses, and champions, is probably going to be overkill. If you have concerns about ammo, most endgame is going to give you free ammo with your running Cenotaph or Aeons, run Special Finisher. You can take most of the artifact mods, and with the new Edge of Fate stat system, if you build into ammo generation, it looks like you're going to pretty consistently spawn green ammo. So I wouldn't say it's too much of a concern. Get those redirection stacks. You just need to hit 1 red bar to have double damage on your next shot on anything that's not a red bar. So you don't have to go all the way all the time. Just enough for you to pretty much burst down whatever you need. And that's going to be it for today. That is our top 14 weapons. Let me know if you agree with this list, if something's out of place for you. And of course, Thursday we're going to get some new patch notes. They're probably going to tell us what weapon balancing is. Might not be until next Thursday. My guess is tomorrow. So depending on how that goes, if we get anything that changes this significantly, I'm going to leave a comment down below, let you know what the changes are. My best guess is most of this is going to be pretty consistent. We might see some minor shifts in some placements, but I don't think we're going to see much of this drop off the list or anything new come on, unless it's a very dramatic shift. With that, you can catch me pretty much daily up until Edge of Fate comes out. And once the Edge of Fate week comes up, I will be streaming all week, including the contest raid. So if you want to join us, you can find the Twitch link in my account below. And I will see you all again very, very soon.